Welcome to Life So Far. I'm Rich Bryant and I sit down with everyday people from all different backgrounds to hear the wisdom and stories from their life so far. Thank you so much for stopping by and I really hope you enjoy this next conversation. Justin, thanks so much for chatting, mate.
Mate, no worries. Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed listening to some of them so far, and actually some of the people you've talked to have been close friends, and I've learnt stuff about them that I didn't know. So it's been cool.
Oh, that's good. It has been interesting, just from me talking to even some of my best mates and going, I had no idea about this.
Yeah.
You know, we don't really chat much when we play Xbox or something.
Yeah.
When you're forced to chat,
Good.
some stuff comes out.
That's really good.
Mate, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Yeah, mate, there's been some really good advice I've got, and I've heard a few people talk about some good leadership ones and kind of life ones, but something that came to mind was when I was just about to move out of home, and someone said to me, "Live where you want to be on the weekend." And It's always stuck with me, and it sounds like a simple piece of advice, but I think what it's done is it kind of frames how you prioritize. Because I don't like the term work-life balance. I love what I do. I really enjoy what I do. So I hear people that talk about, that I often get, people say you work too much, you do this, and I don't, because I love it. So what's too much?
Yeah.
And so when people talk about, the whole 9 to 5 thing and leaving at 5, that feels like I'd do that if I hated my job and not if I liked my job. And so I think it helps to reframe that whole live where you want to be on the weekend to putting work in its place that doesn't necessarily have to be a day-to-day time thing, but more about where do I want to be? So rather than buying near where your job is or whatever, buy or rent in the place that, the community want to be in and where it's going to be great for your family and your kids and stuff. So that's always stuck with me, and I think a good piece of advice.
That's really good. I've never heard that saying before, but I think that's so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
This idea of kind of 9 to 5 and then you switch off. There's not that many people that can really do that, especially you're somebody who runs your own business.
Yeah.
It's very tricky, I think, to have that mentality and kind of have a business.
Well, I also think it's flawed, the whole idea that work-life balance means time, because if you've got your own business, there's pressures that aren't 9 to 5. But also, if you genuinely love what you do, you love thinking about it, and you love planning, and all that sort of stuff. So if you're falling in the trap of thinking you're failing with balance, if your time feels wrong, then I think that's a real trap. So, I think for me, work-life balance looks like, is my family getting my attention? Am I getting downtime so that I'm energized? That sort of stuff, rather than it being more of a time thing. So
yeah, definitely. I think I've heard someone explain it as, rather than work-life balance, it's like work-life harmony.
Yeah.
Like it's a bit of a wanky kind of term, I guess, but
it makes sense.
Makes sense. And that looks different for everybody, how exactly. That works. And obviously it's something that you kind of has to be okay with the people who it affects, like your partner and kids and things like that. But that looks different for everybody as well.
I mean, it sounds businessy, but essentially we all have a bunch of stakeholders we've got to manage, and work's one of them. Our bosses are one of them, or our clients are one of them, and so is family. But how you prioritize where those are help you balance that harmony. So yeah.
Very cool. What has been your greatest struggle?
I've had a bunch. I'm 42 now, married with almost three teenagers. One's 12, and so there's plenty of struggles that come with that. But definitely the theme that was a big part of my life for a long time, I struggled with anxiety.
Okay.
So I've had some pretty hard times with anxiety where just it's tough to kind of push through. But work pretty hard, and in a really excellent place for the last few years. Have been really, really good, and seen some great people, talked to a lot of good people. But it's something that I've now been able to talk to with a bunch of mates and things like that, and I know that it's certainly not an unusual thing. It's a super common struggle that people have. So yeah, that's probably been the thing that's, and it's got its ripple effects as well, because it ripples into, the not feeling like you're good enough, or that whole imposter syndrome stuff, which lots and lots of us have, where you never quite feel like you're gonna fail at any point in time. You're never quite going to live up to people's expectations, things like that. So yeah, that's probably been the theme, certainly through my younger years, where I had to work really hard at working out how to, I guess not erase that, because I don't think, there's a difference between worry and anxiety. Worry is healthy and anxiety is not. So there's a balance there where there's a tipping point all the time. And so learning how to manage that, learning how to identify that, learning strategies on how to stop it from tipping over that edge is, I guess, something that I've just learnt as I've talked to people and learnt strategies, I guess. But yeah.
Is that something that you think, like, do you have an idea of where that anxiety stems from?
Not really. I probably, talking to mum and dad, as a kid, I always had that kind of that social. I was a very shy kid.
Right.
People laugh at that now because they don't think I'm shy at all, but I am. I'm an introvert by nature. Although Corona kind of challenged me with that, because I just realised how energized I get from other people, even though I think I'm an introvert. Maybe I'm just an introvert on paper, but I don't know.
Yeah. You did some tests one day, and now you're an introvert.
But I don't love crowds and things like that. I've always had anxiety about, social networking and all that sort of stuff around work. And but yeah, mum and dad said I've always kind of carried a bit of that over worry type thing. But I think it's one of those things that, and talking to counsellors have said that sometimes it can be triggered by kind of learnt behavior, but sometimes it can just be an evolution of how you deal with things as a kid. And if you don't push yourself, and maybe some kids would, and then you kind of get in your shell a bit more, and it can just kind of happen over time. And I think that's probably more like what happened to me. And it wasn't till I was a little bit older that I realized it was enough of an issue to actually deal with. I think that's the difficult thing with any mental health stuff, is often you don't believe that you need someone to talk it through with until it's at a more of a severe place, because it doesn't feel like it's affecting you as much, or things like that. So yeah, I think for me it was a bit of an evolution over time.
I think especially as well especially in our world now, where help, quote unquote, is just like a key stroke away, where we think, I can get a look at something on YouTube around anxiety or depression. I struggled with depression quite a bit, and I still do often on. And it took me forever to actually, go, oh, maybe I have got a bit of depression here.
Yeah.
And then the next step after that was to go and see somebody. Yeah. But there was a period in between those two where I just kind of like would research things and do this. And for me, there was something about that just made it worse, I think, because it's kind of like with the anxiety, it brings up more of those things. So then you kind of go, well, hang on, what's wrong with me? Why am I depressed? Or then you go into a certain situation at work. Oh, maybe this is making me depressed. And it wasn't until Danny, my wife, went, just go and talk to somebody. Yeah. I talked to somebody, and it was a bit of a journey since then, but it's just so important.
Oh, there's still a stigma for men in particular. I think for all people, but for men, I don't really understand it, because when I identified, I couldn't figure it out myself. I had no issue going seeing someone, and like you, the first time I sat down and spoke to someone, I walked out like this weight had been lifted, because essentially she said, well, you're normal. And that was enough to kind of kickstart the journey of, I guess, healing and things like that. But there is still a stigma. It's something I did learn, interesting, just hearing what you were saying before about depression. I learned that depression and anxiety are actually the same chemical imbalance, but depending on our personality is how we'll kind of outwork that imbalance, because obviously there is a hereditary thing. My mum had some depression, and that definitely is something that can be a bit hereditary, learnt as well as physical. But yeah, that was interesting for me to understand that it's actually the same thing, but it can be triggered depending on your personality type in a different way. So yeah,
that is interesting.
Fascinating.
It's especially for guys. It's so funny. I try and fix everything.
Yeah.
Like Danny has an issue. I'm like, oh, we'll just do this, but I won't do that for myself.
Yeah, exactly right.
So exactly. Like, that doesn't need to happen.
Yeah.
What has been the happiest moment of your life?
Yeah, heaps of great stuff. But something that comes to mind is I made as a dad. I do run my own business. I've always had a high work ethic, and you always fear of not being there for your kids enough. And, you don't ever want to be there. Well, I don't ever want to be the dad that the kids look back and go, dad was never home, dad was never there. So I've always wanted to be really present in the kids' life. And one of the things that I decided to do in the year they turned 8 was each one of them, as they turned 8, take them for a trip away. So took each of them just after their 8th birthday to Melbourne and had a weekend, just me and them. And,
that's so cool.
It's just I just remember them being fantastic weekends, and just really, I think, quite pivotal for me, at least. I'll have to talk to the kids in 10 years' time when they're talking to a counsellor and see if it was for them. But yeah, for me, it was a really pivotal time in relationship with the kids to just get that outside the day-to-day, the one-on-one time. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That's a great idea. There's something about as well going on holidays. I don't know if you guys find this, but I don't have kids, but I remember as a family, when you go on holidays, I used to see almost my parents in a different light as well. Like, they were still my parental figure, obviously.
Yeah.
But you're kind of on like neutral ground.
Yeah.
Almost. Like, I'm not in their house now.
Yeah.
We're in a hotel room or something like this.
Yeah. It was interesting. My parents were very present with us as we were growing up. Dad was a hard worker too. I got my work ethic, I think, from him. And but weren't that separate. When my mates had come around, they weren't the ones sitting in the lounge room having a cup of tea. They were in there having a chat to us. And we've really modelled our parenting a little bit off what that was for me, and my wife had the same experience. So we do try to have more of those holiday moments, like you talk about, in more just general life of being on that same page, just being present in the fun and getting to know their friends. Like, we found that really important. It's a real value of ours to get to know who our kids enjoy being around, and for them to feel comfortable with us too. And so I think it's important to be able to take those times, like you said, with holidays, where you are an even playing field and you're showing the real you, and it's not just the day to day. Yeah,
that's so cool. I might steal that in 8 or 9 or 10 years or whenever when I have kids.
It's actually something we've had to come to terms with a little bit of, we both don't like, I suppose, big noting or anything like that. It's probably not in our personality, but probably have had to accept that after nearly 20 years of marriage and 40 years of life, we probably have some wisdom that we have a responsibility to share in some way. So had to come to terms with that a little bit, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, this is your opportunity. Or one of many, I'm sure. Yeah. What legacy, or how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah. I've actually been struggling with this little one a little bit because I actually don't think I care if I'm remembered. I really hope to be missed, to have some kind of impact on someone or people or on a community where, when I'm not there, it's missed. I don't know if I really care about being remembered, if that makes sense. I know it's probably subtle, but again, it's probably just the lens you look through of to want to be remembered almost sounds a little bit arrogant. I know it doesn't need to be, but just as I was thinking about it, that's kind of how I was perceiving it. And I definitely want to leave a mark in whatever I do, whether that's with work, with my family and my marriage and my friends and my church and any community that I'm a part of. And I want to be leave a difference that wouldn't have been there if I wasn't there. So I coach a junior footy team, and I love doing that. And when people ask me what's your coaching philosophy, generally I talk about, I just want the kids to leave loving their footy more at the end of the year, and hopefully being even better people by just seeing good integrity, good respect, encouragement, and that sort of stuff. So I think I want to be missed.
So you're not necessarily somebody who needs to have their name up in lights kind of thing.
No, I think everyone likes recognition. I think people that say they don't like recognition are lying to themselves, because I think we all do, even if we don't like being centre of attention. There's an inbuilt need for someone to say you're doing a great job, but it's whether or not that drives you or stops you not having it. I think that's where recognition can be an issue of priorities again, right? Like where does that sit in the priorities? So yeah, I'm not the person that likes being center of attention. So I probably naturally don't look for recognition, and happy being the kind of the hidden guy getting stuff done. That's but you know, that I think when you do that and that's your attitude, you tend to find yourself sometimes in the center, because people, I think one of the most attractive things about Christians is, you know, when we're doing it the way Jesus asked us to, is authenticity and empathy. I think are two of the things that are lost in our culture. And I think when that's happening, people want it, they crave it, because it's not normal, it's different. And then so people then seek you out because they want you to show other people like that, because it makes them feel how they want to be felt. And so then you end up in, you know, I find myself in leadership positions, even though I probably never seek them, I think probably because of that. I think you just, people want some of the things that are valuable to you. And so then, you know, say, well, can you tell other people about that? So, whether you like it or not, I think sometimes you get thrust into things because of what you think and what you value.
It's so true, isn't it? I can't remember who it was, but there's a very influential soccer coach I think it's in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And so he's a Christian, and they're like, his team's going incredible. It's Jurgen Klopp for Liverpool. So he's a evangelical Christian, whatever that really means. And someone asked him a similar thing, like, what's your coaching philosophy? And he's like, we obviously want to win football games, but at the end of the day, it's me showing up and giving a crap, caring about these guys on the field.
Totally.
He says it, and it's all through all of that I've never seen players work so hard in their life. Yeah. You know, and he kind of, he doesn't allude to it too much, but he says a bit, you know, it's I coach from my faith, from a place of faith.
Yeah, yeah.
Where I'm like, well, what are all the principles of Jesus, who I believe in? How would he have done this? And he says there's obviously parts that you still need to know, technical football and this sort of stuff. But he says we're the community, and he says ever since he started as a coach, he's kind of just found himself in leadership positions because of that sort of stuff.
Totally. If people see empathy and they see compassion, whether they're your employee, they're a kid on your footy team, they want to play for you, they want to work for you, they want to help, because it's attractive, you know, because we all want to feel valued. And so when someone's showing us that, we want to follow them, you know. So and there's a mix. Like, he definitely obviously has a incredible competitive nature, knows so much about soccer as you have to, and just wants to win. So you have to have that as well. Of course. Yeah. But I just found that really interesting. Which is no different in sport or business too. Like, you can still be a boss with really, you know, strong strategic goals and financial goals or whatever. That doesn't stop you from being able to act in a way that is, you know, empathetic and encouraging and putting yourself in your employee's shoes. And it doesn't change that, but it certainly makes it easier for them to follow you. Definitely. Yeah. From a leadership perspective, definitely. And a relational, every perspective really, isn't it? What piece of advice would you give to people watching or listening? Yeah, I think the piece of advice I give to people all the time is don't say no for someone else, and don't let someone else say no for you. So first of all, you know, in trying to protect people, I've done this as a boss, but even in church with volunteers, it's really easy to go, you know, they're too busy, they've got too much on their plate and whatever, and sometimes make the decision for them instead of actually saying, hey, you know what, I think you'd be great doing this. Have you thought about it? And I think sometimes we can rip people off by saying no for them, all with good intentions. So yeah, I think it's really important to, when you identify something in someone, call it out and let them make that call. But I think on the flip side too, it's really important that you don't let other people say no for you. So I talked a bit before about, you know, I do have a strong work ethic. I like being busy. I'm not good at just sitting down doing nothing. And you know, I've often had, family and friends say, you've got to slow down, you've got to say no to stuff and whatever. And I think sometimes that is true, right? But a lot of the times I've probably thought about that and gone, well, I'm a big boy. I can work out my limits, and I think it's really. I'm really careful as I say this because I think it's really important. Self-care is really important, and being appropriate with your time and how you're caring for yourself is really important. But I think it's really easy to fall in the trap of tipping over the edge of into complacency and almost using that as an excuse to not get off our bum and do something and get involved and actually be giving of ourselves to other people. And it's given us, I think, as I said, I'm really careful in saying this because I don't mean this to be a one size fits all, but I think it's easy to be trapped into glorifying selfishness under the guise of self-care. And I think it's a trap for us a bit. So, I think it's important that we don't let other people say no to us, no for us as well. So if we're, if we're being told, you're not coping and whatever, we need to decide, well, is it, do we just have a capacity that person doesn't see, and make that decision for ourselves? So.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? Everyone's so different when it comes to that. Some people have crazy capacity, some people don't. And it doesn't mean that one's less valuable or more valuable than the other because they're all super important.
But everyone's individual and needs to make that call themselves and know the limits. And I think I've found personally that as I've pushed myself, I've found a greater capacity in a lot of times. So I shudder to think who I'd be if I didn't push. And I know not everyone's going to be like that too. That's sometimes that is a personality thing, and that can be quite foreign and not healthy for some people. But for me, that's actually a way I've been able to understand my capacity by going, well, I'll deal with that if I'm finding that my stakeholders are not getting looked after, then I'll deal with it at that point. But I really want to do that thing, and I think I can do it, and I've put the thought into it, and I think it's a wise enough decision. I'm going to do it and then work it out from there. And I've often found that my capacity's grown more than I thought it probably had. And then that just gives you a building block for next. You've got the confidence to step into something new because you know that you've found a greater level of energy that you didn't realize you had. And because energy comes from so many different sources that you don't know sometimes until you walk into them, until you try. I think it's important to also push into things as long as we've got the ability to escape when we know in ourselves that it's too much. Yeah,
there's definitely a healthy push, isn't it? And it's as we're talking, I was reminded of the classic, is it Roger Bannister, like the 4-minute mile sort of thing where no one, they all said it is impossible. No one will ever run I think it's 4 minutes.
Yeah, I think
no one will ever run which seems really slow, but I don't think I could do it.
Yeah.
But 4-minute mile. And then as soon as he did it, all these people that said, oh, it's impossible, you can never do that, they all started breaking the record.
100%.
Yeah, there's been so many different things like that. I was watching a crazy guy, what's his name, Alex Honnold. So he is a free climber. So he rock climbs without ropes.
Yeah, nuts.
And there's a movie called Free Climb, I think it is. And he climbs Yosemite or the main El Capitan. Yeah. Just, I was sweating the whole way through it. Like, I know he lives, but he was an absolute freak.
Yeah.
And everyone said it's impossible. And then he did it, and all these, like a bunch of people have done it afterwards now. Yeah. But I think that's extreme examples, but there's so much stuff that we can, and you're right in saying it's not a one size fits all. So you have to be careful about, not saying that everybody should just push themselves crazy. Right. But I think naturally for most of us, we assume we can do less than what we can actually do. Even an example is at a gym or something like that. Usually when your body's telling you to stop, or when your mind's telling you to stop, your body's usually got a whole bunch more capacity than it.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
And it's about just training that. And I think if we're smart and we are, mature about it, we can do that in a healthy way and kind of always, as you say, have a bit of a fallback.
Yeah.
That we're not going to crash and burn if we.
And there's seasons too, right? Like there's seasons where doing less is really important for your body to rejuvenate, your mind to rejuvenate. But But seasons are exactly that. They start and finish. So there needs, I believe that there shouldn't ever be a season where you're in that your whole life. Like there needs to be seasons where you do push and you do go, now I need to step back, because that rhythm of life is the thing that grows us and expands our capacity and finds passions that we didn't know were there and all that sort of stuff. And I think that trap is something that our culture in particular almost celebrates, that trap of not stepping out, because that's too scary and that could push us over the limit.
Yeah. We kind of glorify the people that are doing it and say, we can never ever do things like that. And in whatever that's in so many different things. And with sometimes something about it, we go, but we can never do that.
Yeah.
Like, they're exactly the same people.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of them are genetic freaks if they're athletes.
Yeah, that's right.
90% of it's just hard work.
I'll never be free climbing, I'll tell you that.
I'll probably never be climbing in general.
Or do a 4-minute
mile.
No,
it's not going to happen. But, mate, thanks so much for chatting.
No worries, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Absolute blast. I've learned more about you than I didn't know, and I think there's some really good pieces of advice and stuff like that you've shared. So
awesome.
Yeah, everybody listening, thanks so much. Hope you got something out of this, because I definitely did, and we'll see you guys next time. I really hope you enjoyed that last conversation. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, it would mean the absolute world if you like and subscribed or left a positive comment. I know you've heard this all before, but these things really do help the channel grow. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you in the next episode.